pop culture is dying. The unifying, ever-changing elements of our collective culture have been on the decline, and it's going to continue to decline as time goes on. At the moment, it kind of feels like people are more fragmented than ever in our world, and a lot of that has to do with the deterioration of pop culture. The decline of pop culture really started in the 2010s. What's considered pop culture now is often a continuation of something that existed pre-2010. Movie studios, for example, don't often invest in big budget blockbusters now based on something that did not exist before 2010. Let's take a look at some of the biggest pop culture standouts of the past few years to see what I mean. Spider-Man No Way Home had a huge moment in 2021, but the Spider-Man character first debuted in the popular zeitgeist in 1962 via comic form. Barbie and Oppenheimer, which had a big same-day release moment in 2023, Barbenheimer, was based off a doll that premiered in 1959 and a historical event from the 1940s. I'll let you decide which one was the doll and which one was the historical event. Even Taylor Swift, who is arguably the biggest musician in the world at the time I'm recording this video, began building her audience in 2006 with her self-titled album. Again, pre-2010s. If you look at newer elements of pop culture, they aren't necessarily resonating in the same way, or entering the cultural conversation on the same mass scale. No shade to Dua Lipa, but Dua Lipa is one of the biggest pop stars at the moment. She had the #1 Billboard hit in 2021 with the song Levitating, but if she were walking down a street, she might not be recognized by the majority of people, and that could differ from, I don't know, a pop star that had a #1 hit 20 years ago. Her presence in pop culture is somehow limited, even though she's at the top of her game. The past few years, it seems like people are more interested in sharing their individualized Spotify rap list at the end of the year, instead of discussing the Billboard top charting songs of the year. Individualized tastes seem to be becoming more important than collective culture. So let's take a look at pop culture, how it developed over the years, and why exactly it's declining today. By the way, if you've seen any other videos on my channel, you'll know that my style is usually more chaotic, but I wanted to try something a little bit calmer. It's an experiment. We're gonna see how it goes. Popular culture, or pop culture, is defined as a set of practices, beliefs, artistic outputs, and objects that are dominant or prevalent in a society at a given point in time. Pop culture has its roots in mass communication, because in order for something to become popular, it must be widely consumed. We use the term pop culture now to discuss shared cultural elements, but back in the 1800s, culture was actually split. There were two types of culture. The first type was called official culture, or high culture. This included highbrow cultural elements intended to be consumed by the elites. Official culture included literary books, operas, Official culture included literary books, operas, art exhibits, elitist stuff. In the mid-19th century, a counterculture of regular people emerged, which was then named popular culture. Popular culture was thought to be lower class, and it did not carry the same status. It was thought to be easily accessible by normal people. Popular culture included things like jokes that were meant to be spread across populations. And early popular culture was often more localized due to a lack of wider distribution opportunities. But increased general education, aka the ability for a lot more people to read because school systems were better, allowed popular culture to really begin to thrive in the mid-1800s. And also because of the Industrial Revolution. As masses of regular people moved into cities during the Industrial Revolution, who often did not have a lot of money and had to live close to one another, these people began creating a shared, common culture that updated more frequently with their shared proximity. The first real media form of popular culture during this time were the penny dreadfuls, especially in the United Kingdom. These were massively produced, cheaply printed small books meant to be rapidly consumed that contained lowbrow stories. Penny dreadfuls were much cheaper than the novels that circulated around the official culture. Things like sporting events, pub culture, and newspapers also served as early pillars of popular culture. But what really accelerated the growth of popular culture was the advent of film and radio. I talk about the expansion of film in the United States of America in my video about why popcorn was initially banned in movie theaters. But film and radio allowed ideas to spread across society like never before. There wasn't necessarily a barrier to entry when consuming film and radio, besides, buying a movie ticket or having an actual radio to turn on. This allowed mass communication to spread across wide demographics of people. Theoretically. Popular culture became even more widespread in the 1950s, with the widespread distribution of televisions in households. In 1958, the term popular culture was shortened to pop culture, and we've known it as pop culture ever since. The Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida even has a value resort themed to pop culture called Pop Century. It has 5 areas, and each area represents a different decade of pop culture: the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. I wanted to mention this resort somewhere in the video because I thought it was cool, but I couldn't figure out where to put it in the video, so here we are. Pop culture marched on through the 20th century with its ever-shifting trends that everybody talked about. But since the 2010s, pop culture has been on the decline, and since the 2020s, that decline has greatly accelerated. Human loneliness is also an emerging problem in the modern world too, especially for younger people. A 2023 study found that 38% of Gen Zs actually report feeling lonely. So what does the lack of unified pop culture in the modern world have to do with loneliness? Pop culture is actually the result of monoculture. The definition of monoculture is the cultivation of a single crop in a given area, which does not make any sense in the context of this video because we were never talking about farming in the first place. But today, the term monoculture is often used to express ideas about a monolithic culture, a singular culture. For monoculture to thrive, culture needs to be driven from the top down, and traditional media companies created an environment of monoculture. If we go back to the origins of pop culture and look at, the penny dreadfuls, the newspaper, film, radio, TV, whatever. It all, more or less, had the same format. Executives at the top decided what content would be distributed via their distribution channels. And as they decided what was and what was not shown, they became gatekeepers. Gatekeepers of culture. And this made sense logistically. It wasn't, necessarily devious or anything. Mass media companies are companies that are trying to make money by making mass media. These businesses needed to maximize their own profit by deciding what to publish and what not to publish. A lot of time, money, collaboration, and resources were poured into the projects that these mass media companies produced. Pre-selected and screened elements then were blasted down to the masses, where the businesses producing the media would hopefully profit. For a long time, there was no other effective way to have your media shown unless you went through these mass media companies. And these media companies would see each other succeed with different things and then copy one another with new projects. This top-down capitalistic approach led to a monoculture of mass media. The public wasn't forced to like anything low. For example, with movies, there's box office hits and there's box office bombs, but both come through this same kind of method, the top down with a movie studio. And the biggest successes in monoculture often cemented themselves in the collective cultural narrative. I have a separate video on social proof, but when something catches on with some segments of society, a lot of new people will also give it a chance because they think that they'll like it themselves. This helped lead to cultural phenomenons in a monoculture. Due to the pre-screened top-down distribution method of monoculture did not necessarily produce a great diversity of thought. A lot of ideas being blasted down were of similar mindsets, even if they were produced by different companies. With traditional television, audience members would watch the same episode of the same TV show at the exact same time. If a half-hour show started at 8, for example, everybody watching would start at 8 and then finish the show at 8:30. Even though many people were viewing the television show individually in their own homes, as a society, watching the TV show was a collective group experience. Phrases like the water cooler effect came into prominence, where people would gather in social settings to discuss the show that they'd all seen the night before and to speculate about what would happen in the future. This created a shared cultural identity. Radio stations tended to play the same single singles too, so everybody around knew the same songs. With similar radio, books, television, and movies, pop culture could thrive across varied audiences because people were engaging with the same source material at roughly the same time. So what happened in the 2010s that disrupted pop culture? People often point towards social media as the reason that pop culture began to fall, but that's not necessarily true. Instead, it's really about the lack of gatekeepers at the top of social media, but that's kind of complicated. When social media platforms were introduced in the mid to late 2000s, they often served as a digital extension of real life, where users interacted with people that they actually knew. But that's not always how social media is now. And in many ways, social media has taken the place of traditional media in many people's minds. Natalie Portman, a movie star you probably know, told Variety in 2024, "The striking thing has been the decline of film as a primary form of entertainment. It feels much more niche now. If you ask someone my kid's age about movie stars, they don't know anyone compared to YouTube stars or whatever." The decline of the movie star is a much broader issue, but the decline of the movie star is related to the decline of pop culture. And the two tie together because of algorithms. Somewhere along the way, the early concept of social media lost the plot a little bit. Instead of being about interacting with people that you knew, social media became about expressing individualism for a lot of people, especially the younger generations. In fact, 58% of Gen Zers recently expressed in a study that social media is the only place they feel like they can authentically be themselves. Social media serves as a hybrid of entertainment and socialization, where users interact with people that they know, people that they don't know, for a mixture of entertainment and socialization purposes, which largely contrasts to the non-interactive traditional entertainment-only media. On social media platforms, users often upload content that they've made themselves, and algorithms assist other users in determining what content they should and what content they should not watch. Or, in the case of short-form content, algorithms determine exactly what a user will or will not see. Therefore, algorithms become the new gatekeepers, except algorithms are kind of complicated. Streaming services use algorithms to help users find traditional media, but with streaming services, there's only so many shows that a streaming service can produce and still be profitable. Many streaming services aren't actually profitable right now, but that's a different story altogether. Social media, however, is largely individualized, with the content it's shown being user-generated. But algorithms are creating problems that are impacting our society at large, and often in severe ways. Unlike traditional media, there is no barrier to entry to have your voice heard on social media. I did not need to get an executive's approval to upload this YouTube video. I simply decided to film myself, edited this video, uploaded it, and I'm hoping for the best. Anyone can upload anything they want on social media, which is honestly either a good or bad thing. Viewing options seem endless, unlike a streaming service, and users will interact with content that specifically suits their individualized tastes. This, by default, shatters the gatekeeping of traditional media, encouraging a wider diversity of thought. Instead of a shared pop culture being pushed from the top down, social media pushes content from the bottom up. Individualized recommendations point users towards their individualized interests. And instead of encouraging more open conversations within a shared monoculture, such as the water cooler effect, it can create subdivision and polarization, which is clearly happening in our society today. Just turn on the news. Come on. Regardless of the social media platform that you're on, an algorithm's main objective is to keep you on their social media platform for as long as possible. For example, if this video was recommended to you by YouTube, YouTube thought that this might keep you on YouTube for a longer period of time, thus allowing you to see more ads and making them more money. And if you're still here, I assume that YouTube was right in showing you this video, because obviously you made it this far. The thing is, it's not necessarily the function of a social media platform to show you balanced perspectives that you might not be interested in. Instead, social media shows you content that it thinks you'll engage with, whether that's things that make you happy, things you'll find useful, things you'll find entertaining, or things that'll outrage you in just the right way to stay engaged. And this is great for the social media platforms because the longer somebody's on their platform, the more money they make. Additionally, to keep people engaged on their platforms for as long as possible, social media algorithms will keep showing people the things that they like, which is often just showing the same type of perspective over and over. This isn't necessarily a bad thing on the surface. Like, if I go on YouTube, I would like to see videos recommended to me that I'm actually interested in, instead of having to go through a whole bunch of crap that I don't care about to hopefully find a video that I like. But this type of approach leads to polarization in society. Social media algorithms can actually loop people in small, niche echo chambers, often blocking out opposing viewpoints and increasing the prominence of their own views to keep each user on the platform for as long as possible. This is attributed to why many people, especially young people, feel like social media is the only place they can authentically be themselves, because it's easier to be yourself in a like-minded echo chamber compared to a monoculture where there's a lot of different personalities, which can then lead to loneliness in the real world because people can't relate to people like they can online. It's a whole thing. Don't get me started. What this means is that in a world that's increasingly online, algorithms create skewed versions of reality that a lot of people start to see as normal, or at least extremely appealing. Let's circle back to that Dua Lipa example. A lot of her success is due to social media platforms like TikTok. But instead of her music spreading through society as a whole, social media algorithms can keep her confined to a corner of the internet. Traditional media with their top-down approach appears to be struggling at the moment, whereas social media platforms with their bottom-up approach appear to be thriving. And this obviously makes traditional media companies nervous. The social media platforms can monetize varied echo chambers that coexist all at once, housed on their social media platform. But traditional media companies that have to produce their own expensive content are the most profitable in a thriving monoculture. To majorly simplify this, it's a lot more efficient for a traditional media company to make one movie that engages everybody than a whole bunch of movies that are made for different market segments, assuming the budgets are similar. Obviously, you want to spend the least amount of money to get the highest amount of return. But people appear to be more interested in their niched out echo chambers compared to an overarching monoculture. As pop culture has been on the decline, large mass media companies have recently tried to launch new franchises, but they haven't always resonated with audiences. There's a variety of reasons for this, which I will not be getting into during this video, but I suspect a lot of it's actually a quality issue, which makes the whole situation more complicated. No one cares. What we've been seeing, at the time of this video, is that traditional media companies largely rely on franchises and elements that rose to popularity pre-2010 because they're safe bets and were already part of the monoculture pop culture narrative. But when these traditional media companies try to make something new, it doesn't necessarily have the same opportunity to spread now like it may have in a pre-2010s world. So where does that leave pop culture moving forward? No one knows what's going to happen in the future. Obviously, artificial intelligence has the ability to divide pop culture even further. In particular, auto-generative AI, which is AI that can produce its own content. If, in the near future, it becomes easy for people to have AI create content for them, and the public embraces the idea of consuming auto-generated content, people may ask AI to make them specific things and consume content that's intended for them as a specific individual. This would place these individuals in their own solo echo chambers. This scenario isn't even out of the realm of possibility based on current technological developments. Auto-generative AI could get weird, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm extremely freaked out about it. This could happen sooner than you think. But will AI play out like that in the future? Who knows? I don't. Traditional monoculture feels more like a thing of the past, and individualized niche echo chambers seem to be the future. I assume there's still gonna be elements of an overarching pop culture that's gonna rise up because we're human. We'll have to see. Popcorn used to be banned in movie theaters, and yes, I'm trying to transition you into the next video. I make no apologies. If you want to know why popcorn was banned in movie theaters, please click on this video over here. And thank you so much for watching.